It's a bloody good turn-up for the Murchison.
I think it's a hell of a good turn-up.
Apart from the knowledge that you've protected a plant, that's a rare plant and it's protected forever now, there's the opportunity for people to actually see how committed we are to preserving our environment.
There's a shrub in this area that is only known to be found in one other place apart from here, and this shrub's particularly palatable to goats, being on top of a breakaway. It's an area that goats like to inhabit and camp, and we realise that it's got to be preserved.
One possible outcome that I think we all would like to see work would be to fence off this part of the population as a control, totally excluding goats and kangaroos and sheep, and then using good pastoral management, including vacuuming, if you like, goats on an ongoing basis, work out whether good pastoralism is in fact enough to save this species and save this critical biodiversity habitat and represent a beacon, if you like, for community-based or pastoralism-based conservation throughout the region.
I also appreciate your presence here today. There's no sense in doing these things unless we can tell the world about it. Dr. David Kemp, Federal Minister for the Environment, is extremely pleased with the way the Enviro Fund is working. A lot of, not necessarily large products, but a huge diversity of products have been made possible by these grants of up to $30,000, and it's made a difference.
I don't think there's any doubt that that future pastoralism will be based around pastoralists demonstrating their environmental credentials through environmental management systems.
It's always in the back of your minds that this is the way that most of the market would like to see it going, and if we've got, say, 10 or 20 years proven behind us, then when the market opportunities do arise, or if they do arise, then we're right there in the forefront with our hands up saying, here's our credentials, here's what we've been doing, and we'll immediately be able to move into those markets. In the future, there's going to be more and more need for monitoring sites to prove that you're sustainable. It's okay to know you're sustainable and your family knows you're sustainable, and but now you're in the situation where you've got to prove that you're sustainable. The other thing we might be able to gain from this type of work is security of tenure. That's a big issue for pastoralists at the moment, and one of the ideas being put around is that if you can prove you're caring for the range condition, then you might be able to gain a greater security of tenure on the lease.
Just a bit of history. We originally learnt of this rare and endangered plant through the Main Roads did a environmental impact study on the new road, and they had biologists, botanists came through doing whatever they do, and they found the plant. We didn't know what it even looked like or what it was foreign to us, but we had a little letter came in the mail that say at GPS site such and such they'd found the SP Beckia plant. At that stage there was only one other known colony in WA of this plant. But we were told not to tell anyone. Do not disturb it, don't do anything, and don't tell anyone.
Well, when we first got the letter saying about the endangered plant, we had no idea what the thing even looked like, and we all sat round and a piece of paper saying endangered plant. We thought, oh, this is exciting, isn't it? But what does it look like? And we went to the site and, well, still don't know what it looks like, had no idea. So we had to call in the experts, Hugh and Ken, to come and identify the plant for us.
One thing led to another, and we came and had a look and eventually found out what the plant was and what it looked like, and realised that there was some browsing damage by goats being on top of the breakaway. A good place that the goats like to camp, and they were doing a little bit of damage to it, namely chewing it down fairly hard, but it seemed to be staying alive and shooting back. In conjunction with Ken and Hugh, initially we thought it would be a good idea to fence it off, some form of enclosure to keep the goats out, and do a bit of monitoring to see if it was going to come back. At that stage there was no regeneration at all. You know, there was aged plants, but we hadn't found any plants at all that were probably younger than 50 or 100 years old.
It was no point really trying to preserve the population without having a really strong fence that could exclude goats and kangaroos.
So we applied for money to fence this enclosure and for 3 goat traps, TGM goat traps.
The main road had gone through our station, so that cut one of the paddocks in half, so we had to install another watering point near the London Bridge plant. So that meant we had 3 watering points quite close to the plant, which made it so accessible to the goats. So what we've done is on every watering point near there, we've built a goat trap yard, so that any time we see a mob of goats, maybe 20 or more in the area, we'll immediately trap them and remove them from the area.
I don't profess to know much about trapping goats, but I do know that they eat voraciously, and any herbage in drought years is going to suffer at their hands. If you keep them off this country, it will be very interesting to see the result. Calm, I'm sure, will be very interested to see what happens to this species without the predation from the feral goats. It could be remarkable. This is going to keep roos out as well, by the look of it, and who knows what might happen.
I'd like to just say a couple of words about the regional significance of this project. If you look at what was happening in the Gascoyne-Murchison strategy, there was a concerted effort to buy pastoral leases for conservation. Although that was a big success, the majority of vegetation types and land systems are still not in the reserve system.
The main idea was just to fence off the macro population in the area, preserve that, and also try and minimise the number of goats in the general area, because we know there's some rare London Bridge plants outside the fenced area.
And then having the fence control, we'd be able to compare the grazing pressure of the goats, or have a comparison with what's inside as to what's outside.
We've got a monitoring site inside the exclosure and one outside the exclosure in very similar country, and so every 12 months we'll take our photos, count the plants, and monitor how they're going inside and outside the exclosure, and that's going to give us the indicator over time of how well the plant's going and how much damage the feral goats do to the population.
The other important thing about doing exclosures is the fact you actually have a rigid monitoring site, so that you can continue to monitor that yearly, to monitor the growth or lack of growth, or the number of baby plants coming along. So it's looking at the recruitment of the species through that area by reducing the impact of grazing animals.
What we need to find out is not simply a way to save this species, but to build a model that can be used throughout the region. So we can't throw millions of dollars at this particular case and walk away feeling good, because we know that there are many more similar cases, so we need a practical solution.
What I'd like to see is a colony on a completely different property, and that's perhaps someone that doesn't manage the feral goats as heavily as we do, and see if there's a colony that exists somewhere else. I'd like to see how that's going in comparison to ours.
I think pastoralists especially have been caring for the environment on a sustainable basis, or aspiring to do so on a sustainable basis, for generations. The Dowden family is no exception to that. I think this act proves the veracity of my statement.
This in fact is a demonstration to the general public that landholders are here for the long haul.
I think that what's being done on Challa is as close to ecologically sustainable pastoralism as we know at the moment.
We've been on the station since 1888, well the Dowdens have, and the long-term sustainability of the property is very, very important. But now we're doing it in such a way that it's visible to the public. It's a way to show people what we're doing. We've got that one fenced area there, but from that we can then explain to people about our 28 monitoring sites on the whole station, and how every year we go around and take photos in every monitoring site, count the number of plants, and do aerial surveillance of the station as well to check that the range condition is either improving or staying the same. I can't wait to see it in about 20 years' time. The fence will still be standing, and it'll still be excluding all of the goats. But I want to see what the London Bridge plants look like in 20 years' time inside the fence. I want to see if there's little tiny baby ones coming up. Ashley said that he saw a few juvenile London bridges inside the exclosure that we've never seen before, but we've only known about it since 1999. And the other little plants too, there was a native lemon tree or something like that stuck out on a cliff. Plants like that will also benefit from the protection of the fence, and I'd like to see how that little fella goes.
This is one of the wild lemons. Its name is Canthia attenuatum. It can grow to 3 or 4 metres in height. Quite clearly what we see here is that the goats have got to it well before it's been able to do that. And under the prevailing goat grazing, it's not likely to get any better than that. With some exclusion fencing, we would expect this bonsaied tree, if you like, to reshoot. That is a very high probability. What we want to see through innovative pastoral management on the other breakaways is the same thing happening, because we've got hold of the feral goat populations. So this would be an excellent example of a benchmark. Are the wild lemon trees over in the breakaways going to resprout and grow up to their full potential, as this one is likely to do?
The other high value of a project like this is the Challa family has completely involved the family. That goes a long way towards educating our future generation of landholders as to the ability of our landscape and the ability of our rangelands to support production and to support in the long term our regional communities.
When we go out on picnics in the bush, we might go for a little wander through some breakaways and we'll be looking out for London bridge plants, and the kids do that as a matter of course. And so right from a very early age they're taught that, well, they're not taught, they're shown that we really care about the environment, and it's going to be built into them right from this early age, and I think that they'll carry that through the rest of their lives. All our kids can go up to the breakaway and identify the London bridge plant and identify the false London bridge plant, as we call it. I don't know what its real name is, but it looks very similar to the London Bridge.
Here is the endangered London bridge plant. It's found on top of these cliffs here, well, high breakaways we call them. It actually gets its name from down here by the roots. You can see the sort of twisting and a really interesting way that the roots turn. There's 2 species of plant here, both that look like the London Bridge. One's a fake, one's real. The first difference is that down here it looks a lot better than the fake one. At this time of year, there's tiny little bell-shaped seed pods on it, which you can see on all of the plants, no matter how young or old they are. You rub it between your fingers and there's a very distinct eucalypt smell. They are endangered, and if you see any, then yeah, you should notify someone and also help to protect this little plant from dangers like goats and roos and things like that.
I filled in the application form, and that was an onerous process in itself. When Ashley first said, "Do you want to do this?" I said, "Oh yeah, I can fill in forms, yeah, no problems." But it was a lot of hard work.
This project got $13,000 of taxpayers' money, and probably 3 times as much in terms of materials and work by the people who managed Challa Station, the Dowden family.
In the application we had to state the reasons for a project and what we would hope to achieve.
We applied for, I'm not sure the exact figure, but for some money, and we said we were going to match it, and we got nothing, which we're a bit disappointed in.
It was a lot of hard work, particularly when we were unsuccessful in the first submission. Then the second submission had to be better.
So we went back to Hugh, and Hugh was a bit disappointed, and I think through a train of events Hugh got hold of Barry, and Barry said we should be able to do something about this, and we reapplied.
Whether it was sheer magic or Barry's charisma, or he just went in there to bat for us, and well, we ended up with the grant.
The thing that I love to keep telling my counterpart MPs in representing city areas is that conservation was invented by my mob, not their suburban mob. But I have to keep on saying it, because the world would have you believe that unless you live cheek by jowl in some city suburb, you don't care about the environment, and it's patently untrue.
We went through the Rangelands Fibre and Produce Association, so they handled part of the application as well, and it was a matter of consulting with Hugh Pringle and Miriam Lang and trying to get the wording just right for the project and trying to make sure that everything was exactly as it should be. And the bigger the word, the better, as far as I was concerned.
We said that I think there was ended up being about 30% Enviro Fund money and about 70% of our personal input.
We had to go around and get quotes for the fencing materials, and the maths bit was hard because you had to add up and then you had to do a balance in the other page, and Ashley had to help me with that bit.
We were granted some money for the enclosure and 2 goat traps because in the meantime we'd already built one.
And then we had to, as part of our agreement, publicise the day, and I've written press releases and sent out invitations to the field day, and well, we've had a very successful field day now, but that was a lot of work organising that. Just making sure that we've kept to the conditions of the grant so that we can show the Australian federal government where their money's gone to and how well it's been spent.
I'm now pleased to know that our nearly $13,000 of NHT Enviro Fund money has gone to a good cause.
We just wanted Barry here for the day to publicly recognise his contribution.
Congratulations to you and to everyone else that contributed to this project. And I now take pleasure in being the first to walk through the gate and declare that this project has been completed.
And also it added credence to the day here when we had an important person come along and make a few speeches and ceremonially open the gate and be the first one to walk through and those sorts of things. I'd love other pastoralists to pick up on this type of thing. Hopefully they've got the time and the energy to do it, because something that's not going to bring in any extra money, and so it's not always appealing to every pastoralist, but taking a long-term view, I think it's a good move, and I think it's the way the industry's got to move forward.
I'm happy to accept that this Brachia species London Bridge is unique to the area, and I commend you, Ashley and Deb, for doing what you've done.
It's just a small project that we've done, but it's probably a big thing that's happened in our lives. It's something that's completely different from running the pastoral operation side of things. You don't have to worry about the sheep and the watering points and things like that. This time you're looking at a little plant, and yeah.
I've got to say that we're pretty proud that we found it on our station. I find it very interesting just because of the basic shape, and compared to most of the other plants around here, they almost look exotic.
We're one of the few people now who can positively identify the London Bridge plant in Western Australia. Well, in the world.